This is Scott Spears, and the Great American Race, the Daytona 500, will be coming at you this Sunday, February 23rd at 1 p.m. on Fox and on many great radio stations across the country. Joining us to discuss this tradition is one of the most legendary drivers and broadcasters in NASCAR history, NASCAR Hall of Famer himself, Gentleman Ned Jarrett, who's already down in Daytona Beach, Florida. Ned, how you doing?
Doing great, Scott, and it's a great place to be right now. The weather is just absolutely gorgeous, well into the 80s today, and predicted to be good all through the weekend, except maybe a couple of small showers that might pass through, but that's typical of Florida.
So no worries about us having big problems on Sunday, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. At least the forecasters haven't seen that yet, so we'll just see how it turns out. But I'll tell you, things are really getting exciting. It's building up to be a great weekend of racing. There's a lot of unknowns, of course, with the new rules and the different spoilers and the downforce is different, and a lot of things that they're going to have to learn about. Although they've done some testing, but still there's a lot that the drivers will have to learn about. So it's going to be an exciting time.
How do you think that will play into the 56th running of this race?
I think they'll learn a lot in the twin 150-mile races, and then, of course, they've done quite a bit of practice, and we'll have more after those races, and Friday will be a busy session for them as well as Saturday. So I think by the time we get to the 500 that they'll have learned enough that, first of all, they'll put on a good race, and then I think that maybe some of the things that we saw in the shootout last Saturday night, they were, of course, they normally are a little more aggressive in that event than they are in the 500 anyway, since there's no points or no, it's just a go for it type of a situation, and that's what they did. And they take chances there that they won't take in the 500. Not meaning that they aren't going to be racing hard, but I think they'll be a little bit more careful about it. And so I think with the things that they learned in the test, in the practice, as well as the 150-mile races, I think they'll be calmed down by Sunday and put on a heck of a show.
Ned, 56 years into this great race, it's always had great popularity, but last 15, 20 years maybe, it's just exploded. What has caused that?
Well, NASCAR does a good job of trying to make the competition as level as they can. In fact, we've had some drivers to win the Daytona 500 that haven't won anywhere else. And that doesn't mean that this is easier. It's just getting yourself in the right position at the right time and having a great race car. Trevor Bayne's a good example of that back in 2011. And he did a great job of keeping himself up front, keeping the car clean, not getting in any bumps or, getting the body tore up on it, which would affect the airflow on it. And so it's wide open. I know Richard Petty had commented a week or so ago about Danica Patrick that she wouldn't win unless everybody else stayed home. I respect Richard Petty to the utmost, but I don't quite agree with him on that, because I think under certain circumstances, any driver in the field can win. But, circumstances has to be right. And, of course, we know that Danica has a great race car with a great team. And so it's possible that she could. I think it's not very probable, but I think it is definitely possible that she or any other driver that hasn't won could pull it off.
Yeah, certainly you touched on it there, and I definitely want to get back to the race, but certainly the King, Richard Petty, very respected in NASCAR and many other circles, did come out and make that comment about Danica Patrick. The quote exactly was, she could only win if everybody else stayed home. He later came back and said, what I said is what I said, and that's what I believe. People took him to task for being sexist. What do you think? What's your read on that, Ned?
Oh, no, I don't see that at all as far as Richard Petty is concerned. He was voicing his honest opinion, and his opinion is very valid. But unfortunately, some people take it the wrong way. But I personally didn't see any problem with him saying what he said. That was his opinion, and he voiced it, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're supposed to be able to do that in America, and so. For those people that took it any other way, it's too bad for them, because he's a great guy, and he's not a sexist or anything. He's just a plain, ordinary type of a person, and has good common sense opinions. But as I said a moment ago, I differ a little bit with him on that. It's going to be difficult for her to win. But it's difficult for anybody to win now. But under certain circumstances, in fact, last year, she came close to winning the Daytona 500 and could just, a little bit of a difference in circumstances there at the end, she could have pulled it off. And who knows, she might be able to this time.
Ned, when it comes to Danica, of course, a lot of the press that comes out features her. Almost every story mentions her. Maybe it's because she's a woman. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's because she does things a little differently. They're certainly, I've never seen anybody else in NASCAR posing in bathing suits in front of their car. What I would think is you would be a NASCAR purist. What do you make of things like that?
Well, she's a great marketing tool. There's no question about that. She's very smart. She knows how to play to the media, and she's got credentials to go along with it. And she's a pretty young lady, and she's a good race driver. And the people around her are using her talents and her appeal to the public to market whatever it is that they're marketing, and doing a good job of it. She's good for the sport. I think she's one of the best things that's happened to NASCAR Sprint Cup Series racing in a long time, because she gets a lot of attention, and that's what the sport needs. And most of the time, in fact, as far as I'm concerned, it's positive attention that she gets, and so she's very good for the sport.
If she does win on Sunday, and she's not the odds-on favorite, but as you say, it could happen.
Sure.
What kind of event would that be?
It's hard to predict, really. It would be awesome as far as the notoriety, not only for her, but for NASCAR Sprint Cup racing. Because she gets attention around the world now, but the sport would get more attention than it has ever gotten in any circumstance. And so it would be huge.
Absolutely. I think most people feel that way. Let's get to the odds, Ned, and that's kind of always a touchy thing. But right now, most of the odds makers that I have checked with this morning are saying Tony Stewart, Kevin Harvick. How do you feel about that?
They certainly will be potential winners, no doubt about it. They are at most any track you go to, but with their success here at Daytona, that makes them puts them right up near the top as far as the odds are concerned. If I were a betting man, I wouldn't hesitate to put money on the line as far as they're concerned. But there's a lot of others too that will run good. Matt Kenseth was so strong here last year in his first race with Joe Gibbs Racing, and he'll be strong again on Sunday. Kyle Busch will be strong, and I think the Fords are going to be better than a lot of people thought they might be. I think Carl Edwards and Greg Biffle, the Penske cars with Keselowski and Joey Logano, they're going to be strong. So it's a wide open situation. It's hard really to get down to just a couple of drivers, but certainly the two that you mentioned will be in the run.
Let me throw three other names at you that have come up. Last year's winner, Jimmie Johnson.
Well, Jimmie Johnson is always a threat on any racetrack, wherever he's at. There's no question about it. And there's no one smarter in the pits than Chad Knaus, his crew chief. And that combination, and Jim is very smart on the racetrack. So that's a tough combination to beat when you look at the type of equipment that they have and the winning experience that they have. They're tough.
Dale Earnhardt Jr.
It's time for him to win, no question about it. He wants to probably more than anybody in the field. And he needs to because he's the most popular driver, and it would certainly be good for the sport for him to win, and he's capable. And this might be the year that he can pull it off.
You know, another name that comes up a lot, and maybe as far as Winner's Circle goes, 10 years ago would have been it, Jeff Gordon. What has happened there?
Jeff, I think when NASCAR started with what they call the car of tomorrow back then, which we all know didn't work out to their expectations, but I think Jeff had a hard time transitioning to the concept of that car and the feel that it had. I mean, he's still a great race driver, and he still wants to win. He can be aggressive when he wants to be or needs to be. I think that has been part of the problem over the years. But there again, that's my personal opinion. And that I have seen a few quotes along that line he's concerned. But I think today's package of racing, the race cars that they have and the downforce that they have, I think is going to play more back in his favor. And so I think he can be a factor in this Daytona 500 than any other race.
You know, Ned, and that was great analysis, I appreciate that, being that you've been a part of this for so long, and this is the race, for so many years, especially here in the Midwest in Ohio, it was the Indy 500. It's almost taken a back seat, and I'm nothing against the IndyCar drivers, to this race. Everybody loves the Daytona 500. What do you think it is about that? Well,
first of all, it's run in the part of the year when there's not a lot of competition as far as other sports are concerned. I think that's one thing. But there's been so many great finishes here, and so the racing is always so good and so close. I think that's certainly part of it. But another part of it is and has been, and I think always will be, is the fact that they're racing cars, stock cars. People can identify with these cars better than some other forms of racing. And I'm certainly not downing any other form of racing. They're all good, and it's neat to see those sleek cars and run the speeds that they do. But people can identify more with the NASCAR cars, and more today than they have in 10 years or so, because NASCAR has brought them back, which is something I thought they badly needed to do, is brought back so people can identify those cars on the racetrack. For many years, you know, they were just all looked alike out there. And I don't think that was good for our sport. In fact, we hit a little bit of a spell there when, of course, the economy had something to do with it, but also I think the cars had something to do with it, too, that people had lost the identity. And now they can identify the car. And I think that's important. I think the American public still has a love affair with the automobile. And I think it's good that NASCAR has brought them back so that those fans can, identify closer with them and have more to pull for.
We ran down a lot of great racers there. Dale Earnhardt Jr., Danica Patrick, Tony Stewart, Kevin Harvick. Ned, as a racer yourself, as a driver, when you get on the field Sunday, is it really just luck and how good you are? Is it really anybody's game?
Well, it's anybody's game, but certainly you can do things that can increase your chances of winning, and that's what the smart drivers like Tony Stewart and Jimmy Johnson and Kevin Harvick and Jeff Gordon and these guys who have won, having past experience is certainly a lot of help, but also you have to be, there's luck involved. You have to be at the right place at the right time. And sometimes you can't predict that. You can try as hard as you want to get yourself in that position, but sometimes it just simply doesn't work out. And so, because everybody else out there is trying to do the same thing. They're trying to get themselves in position to win. And so it's a chess game. There's no question about that.
Absolutely. Ned, a lot of fun with this race, a lot of excitement, a lot of fanfare. 2001, certainly there has been tragedy, the loss of Dale Earnhardt. Here we are 13 years later. Does that still hang over this event?
Well, I think it does, and I think it always will, because of his popularity and what the man did for the sport and where he stood in the sport when this happened, and where he stood was right at the very top. He was an icon, and I don't think that many of us realized just how much of an icon he was until he was gone. And so I think that will always linger as far as this race is concerned, and that's okay, because there's certain people that are attached to certain events, and certainly he was attached to the Daytona International Speedway and the Daytona 500, even though he only won it one time. But still, he was probably beat more at the end than anybody else, and he just was such a legend in every way.
Can't talk about this race, Ned, without bringing up 1993, your son Dale's first win, the call that you gave, very enthusiastic. What do you remember about that?
Well, that was a day that we'll always remember too, and it was something that you don't plan going in, and it just happened. And as we've traveled around the country since then, more people have mentioned that than all other things put together as far as the Jarretts are concerned. And it's something that we treasure. At the moment, we didn't know that it was going to turn out to be such a human interest story and something that would linger on for years and years, but it's something that we're very proud of, that it has worked out that way, and if it's been a contribution to the sport, that makes us even more prouder.
Do you miss the booth?
I miss it to a degree, but as we get older, you want to be you want to slow down and get. Although I haven't slowed down as much as I need to at 81, but I don't miss the travel and all of that kind of thing, but certainly the challenge of being in the booth and trying to adapt to whatever's happening at the time, and it's forever changing, which presented a great challenge. And I think that's what every athlete is looking for, or every person that broadcasts. They're looking for a special challenge out there, and boy, you get it in auto racing. You get it in any sport for that matter, but auto racing, there's so many different variables that are involved in it, and it can change from 1 second to the next, and trying to keep up with that. So you miss that part of it, but the grind and the hours that you spend away from home, I don't miss that part.
Two questions before we wrap this up, Ned, and I know you're busy down there doing all kinds of things. Where did the gentleman title come from? Because certainly you were as intense as anybody else.
I don't know, honestly. I don't know of a particular moment that somewhere along the way, someone saw me do something or say something that they put that title on me, and it stuck, and I'm thankful for it, certainly. I mean, what better title could you have than that? And I've been very appreciative of it. And, the good Lord works in a lot of different ways, and getting you in positions and getting things, or allowing things to happen, or making things to happen that can further your sport or further your individual way of doing things, and so it's just something that happened and just carried on over the years. I hope I've earned it to some degree.
I think most people would agree with. I think all people would agree with that, Ned. And the final question, to put you on the spot, we've talked about a lot of great drivers. We've talked about what Richard Petty thinks. We've talked about what the odds makers think. We've probably talked about what the publicity people would like. Ned Jarrett, who's going to win Sunday?
I'm going to say Dale Earnhardt Jr. I just think it's time for him to win.
Any particular reason backing that up besides it's his time? Do you think he wants it more?
He certainly has been running better the last few years, and then he was in position to win this race last year, and almost did, finished second, I believe, and he's focused, and I think that he will certainly be a strong contender, and I just believe he could pull it off, and it would be good if he could.
It's the 56th running of the Great American Race, the Daytona 500, coming up on Sunday, February 23rd. Festivities kick off on television, 1 p.m. on Fox, and many great radio stations throughout the country will be talking and covering this race as well. Gentleman Ned Jarrett, it is a pleasure to have you on, and I hope you come back and maybe give us some fallout from the big race on Sunday next week sometime.
Love to do it, Scott. Thanks. Always good to talk to you.
Gentleman Ned Jarrett, take care.